If you've ever wondered what the heck you actually said at the end of that party,
or wanted a do-over button for those cringe-worthy encounters,
then you've experienced what we call the joy of awkwardness.
I'm Mendy.
And I'm Bree.
And we're here to celebrate the awkward.
Embrace the awkward.
And remind you of one important thing.
You may be awkward,
but you're definitely not alone.
Well, that was awkward.
Hey, listeners. It's Mendy again. Alone again. I told Bree that my awkward story took place in the summer of 1994, and she immediately ran off to dig through her storage bins to find her denim overall shorts. But there's a whole lot of oversized flannel shirts in there, so she's going to be at it a while. So it's just you and me and my high school journal. It's June of 1994. It was the summer between my sophomore and junior years of high school. It was a really big summer. It was my first summer lifeguarding at the town pool, and band camp was an even bigger deal because I was the featured baton twirler in the band. All the other girls had quit. And this is important background knowledge. I was a little boy crazy. Now, I was a good girl, mind you. I lived in too small a town to damage my brand, as I called it back then. I was going for breadth of experience rather than depth, if you know what I'm saying. My journal reads like a dating app on shuffle. It was Randy one week, Steve the next. Then a week later, I'm just in heaven because, quote, me and Beau had so much fun with his family at the Western Sizzlin'. Another important piece of information that many of you already know, I am and always have been a merry prankster, a mischievous one. One journal entry reads, I got sent to the office because I pulled a chair out from under Buffy and she hit her head, and I feel like such a dummy. She was so good about it, though. Buffy, by the way, is now a judge. And I'm glad to know that someone so cool and forgiving is in a position to deal out justice and mercy. And by this summer of 1994, my mischievous spirit and my boy-crazy heart were gearing up to create the perfect storm, the moment that would become the most painfully awkward moment of my entire high school career. And what do you know? It wasn't at band camp. It was in Quebec on our French trip. I had never been anywhere that I remembered going except Nags Head, North Carolina. I lived in England when I was a little kid, but this was my first sentient human woman trip out of the U.S., and it was fascinating. It was magical. Old Quebec felt like a fairy tale. Cobbled streets, lamplight, stone walls that looked like they'd seen a few sword fights back in the day. I used to get a real poetic feeling just going to Busch Gardens, but this was my first taste of the big world for real. We visited a cathedral with a shit ton of crutches and canes that were attached all around the pillars and walls left there by people who'd been healed. We roller skated to French disco music. I was mesmerized by a local native musician group that played a wooden flute in a way that I'd never heard the flute played before. I actually bought their tape and would play it for years later because playing it reminded me that there was a whole world out there beyond the borders of Lunenburg County, Virginia, that there is so much to explore. We accidentally were part of an historic Expos game. My friend Cindy and I were in a line at concessions when the mascot ran by in a panic because their pitcher had rushed the mound and started a riot. And even the hotel was a blast. We'd bop over to each other's rooms all the time. One night in particular, we all gathered around the TV in our room after one of my friends blurted out, "Y'all, there's a weird parade on every channel." And it took us a while to get it, A, because the parade was in L.A., which was also a foreign land to us, and B, the news was all in French. But the parade got even more exciting when one of the more advanced French scholars among us figured it out. It was the live O.J. Simpson chase. But the star attraction, the pièce de résistance of Quebec, even better than roller skating to French disco music and the O.J. parade, was Marc Poitras, our beautiful, barely older than us tour guide. He was so handsome and had a French-Canadian, but French to us accent. Boarding the bus and brushing past Mark each day was the highlight of everyone's trip. He was also funny and playful. Like, he warned us to be careful with our pronunciation when we ordered poutine, or else we'd accidentally order a sex worker. we were all in love. I still have a photo of all of us posing with him. We'd all triple dog dared each other to go in for a kiss on him when the photographer said, say cheese. And the picture, sure enough, has him making a terrified but smiling face while a clump of 16-year-old girls all took that triple dog dare simultaneously. And poor Cindy, she reminded me years later, yesterday, that I'd used the tail end of her French braid as leverage to hoist myself up and get a smooch. That was a dick move, Cindy. I'm so sorry. Oh, my God. And Mark, that poor man. And one fateful night at the hotel, the mischief really came to a head. Me and the girls thought it would be cool to do some prank calls. No cell phones back then, just the landline, the room-to-room calls. It was so easy. You just type in 3 digits. I'd already been busted before back home for prank calling. Such a dumbass. Literally pushing 0, dialing the operator and singing, "Operator, this is an emergency," and "Smooth operator." And the operator always called right back because they are the operator and they have all the receipts. But I didn't learn my lesson. Both songs had operator in them. It had to be done, often, and from different friends and different friends' grandma's houses. But this particular night, we decided to call everyone's rooms using a very special voice one of us had invented and all of us could do. It was this deep, breathy voice we used back home to prank each other in the school hallways. We'd sneak up behind a friend, lean right up to their ear, and say something totally random in that voice just to watch them freak out and then crack up. Okay, I guess I have to do the voice so you'll get the picture. The voice sounded like this. What I just said was the voice sounded like this. See, very stupid. So we loaded up one of the dumbest Beavis and Butthead-worthy phrases in our rotation, put it through the voice, and went on a calling spree. We were in absolute hysterics. The next morning, we load onto the tour bus, brush past Mark, hoping he appreciates Giorgio Beverly Hills designer Imposter's eau de perfume. Take a seat, ready for our last day of touring, and Mark, instead of being cute and fun and cracking jokes, is very stern, very, very serious. The spark is missing from his crystal baby blue eyes. His chiseled cheekbones now seem morose rather than exotic. His ever-present grin is gone. We all sit down in our seats, ready for the day's adventure into Hick Girls Europe, a.k.a. French Canada. But Mark speaks softly to the tour bus driver in French, telling him that we are not ready to leave just yet. Nous ne sommes pas prêts à partir. He stands at the front of the bus in the aisle, both hands gripping the headrests of the front seats, which are empty because, triple dog dare all we like, no one has the balls to sit that close to him. Remember, we're going for breadth, not depth of experience. And here's the part where I'm going to do a bad French accent, which actually some French folks may say is a legit French-Canadian accent. Mes amis, we have had something très terrible occur over the night. It seems that one of you is being, how do you say, menaçant? Our French teacher whispers to him, yes, threatening, menacing. Many phone calls were made, and these calls, they did strike such fear in those who received them. In hindsight, this moment does sound a little like an Agatha Christie Hercule Poirot moment. It was like when all the culprits are gathered together for the detective's final reveal, or like Clue, the movie. But imagine the detective is totally hot and the rest of us are 16-year-old girls. We know who it was that placed these calls, and we will not explore today on this our final day ensemble until the caller of these threats confess. Just then, an older girl from a group of very religious girls who were rooming together and sitting together right now on the bus stood up and yelled, "Somebody called us and said Dirty Jesus was a chump." Insert collective gasp. The bus shuddered. Yes, it was me. It was us, of course, all the dipshits in our room. But we had absolutely not called every room and threatened them with Dirty Jesus was a chump. We were Christian, like everyone in Lunenburg County. Hell, another entry in my journal from May of that very same year reads, quote, "Sometimes I think the only people I can trust is Cindy and Jesus." Jesus was always right there, just over our shoulder, wearing his toga, looking like Kenny Loggins, smiling, even though he was perpetually a little disappointed. So I had no choice. The other dipshits were scrunched down in their seats, crying, scared, and Mark Poitras, the closest we'd ever been to anyone resembling a Frenchman, knew we were guilty because of the absolutely reliable and immediately attainable records from a 1990s hotel landline-based switchboard. And now Mark thought we were satanic. And my French teacher knew, and she would report to my family that I was the devil's handmaiden too. They already knew who it was, so there was nothing to lose in telling the truth, right? So I stood up and declared, it was us. But we didn't say dirty Jesus was a chump. We love Jesus. What we said was, there's dirty cheese whiz in my butt. Silence. Quoi? Mark Poitras asked. There's dirty cheese whiz in my butt. We would never say Jesus was dirty or a chump.
Well, that was awkward.
See, our stupid voice had apparently created some distortion in our message, or maybe it was old Quebecois hotel landlines, but either way, our perfectly innocent, however stupid prank message had been misinterpreted as blasphemy. The devil was real in Lunenburg County. If Jesus was on my right shoulder, Beelzebub was also ever present on my left one. I'd tried to make it better by telling them what we'd really said, which was somehow even worse and more embarrassing. So that's the story of how I attempted to clear my name and instead confirmed I was equally parts Beavis and butthead. My journal says, quote, I slept and cried all the way home. I never got in trouble at home. I think speaking the phrase dirty cheese whiz in my butt was too much for my French teacher. What happened in French Canada, reste au French Canada. I went on to study French throughout high school and continued my studies for 3 years in college, although I still can't say hors d'oeuvres, yet I love a deviled egg. I recently Googled Mark Poitras and found him. He'd married another tour guide from the same company. They had a son. And Mark passed away suddenly at the age of 47 about 10 years ago. And that news made me very sad. I'm hoping that, in some small way, our innocent stupidity gave him a good laugh years later. Maybe a good story he could tell about stupid Americans at parties. And I'm sorry that he had to go so soon. And we'll be back next week with another listener story. In the meantime, we'd love to hear your most awkward high school moments or your best pranks and crushes gone awry. Until then, a biento or a biento. It's still funny.
This has been an Awkward Sage production.